hunters, poachers, they come around that corner, they're not going to have time to stop. They're going to run right into your car.
That's what was going through my mind as well. It was like we were on that bend. That's right where I thought we were going to flip over possibly. And some of those guys with those big old trucks coming down there that are built to drive in that stuff, which I am not. I just think I am. Unlike the little engine that, always says, I think I can. But I was just hoping God nobody got hurt at that point. And then when it died, when I started messing around underneath the hood, and then we lost all power. So we are sitting in the dark on a blind corner with trucks that could possibly be coming down the hill. My heart was beating pretty good by that point.
Yeah, it was a nightmare, but we finally got it out. We got the truck out. We were able to make it down the hill a little bit. And we drove over this. There's this one area where I was telling you where I think they're coming up and down the mountain. But it has a berm there. It's like the BLM dug it out so you can't drive up there. And we were so frustrated we decided to drive over it, which we got over it. And we set up shop for the night. And it's, Greg is a funny guy. For the audience, my younger brother, I'd have him on the show, but he's a one-word type of answer type of guy. It's funny because him and I, and this is more relevant later to the story, but him and I always bicker and argue. He's a year younger than I am. And him and I always bicker and argue because of gun safety. I don't think and he doesn't do it intentionally. There's no ill intent on his part. But he makes me laugh because there's zero common sense when it comes to gun safety. You'll be you'll be walking and you'll turn around and you'll be looking down the barrel of his AR-15 with his finger on the trigger. And and I'll start yelling at him, and then he's got to tell me how the safety's on, and that I'm just being a baby and on it. So him and I will sit and argue about it, and I'm surprised I haven't been shot at this point. I mean, I am really shocked. I haven't not eaten a bullet at this point.
Yeah, because
how he is, I
even had to get after him. I had to get after him too as well. I was like, quit pointing your gun at him. Finally, Wes is like, I am no longer taking the lead. Somebody else is going to take the lead,
Yeah, because we'll be walking up the hill. But anyway, we decide to walk up the mountain, and it's deep, deep snow. And Woody and I went up the next day, and you'll find out why here in a moment. And I videotaped some of it, and I'll post it up to the website so you guys can see the area. As we're start walking up the hill, I realized this camera's kind of pointless. Like, I can't. We could see that night. I don't know if most of you saw the moon on Christmas. It was beautiful. It was very bright, beautiful, beautiful moon on Christmas night. And then with all the snow up there, we almost didn't even need our flashlights. We could just walk and just see everything. For the most part, we could walk around and have no problems. So I ended up leaving the camera. We're walking up the mountain. And what we would do is we'd walk, and then we'd all stop, kind of get in the brush, and just kind of listen. And then we'd walk up, we'd get in the brush, we'd all stop and listen. And as we're halfway up the mountain, I was saying, hey, Woody, go up ahead, 30 feet, 40 feet, and find a spot in the brush. And I was telling Greg, go up about 15 feet, find a spot in the brush. And old Gregor, you could hear him breathing a mile away. But so we all get in the brush and we're all sitting there waiting. We hadn't heard anything yet at this point. It was pretty quiet. One thing we did see on our way up though was cougar tracks. And I don't know about you, Woody, but those were some of the biggest cougar tracks I'd ever seen in my life. That cougar was probably close to 2 bills.
It was huge. It was the biggest ones I've ever seen. I was almost going to back you up and cut you off there, but because I thought you were going to leave out the cougar track part. But they were. I mean, it was, I've had dogs that have been, I have an 80-pound pit bull now. And I've had black labs that have been, over 100 pounds. And the imprint that I saw of this cougar, it made me kind of nervous, actually, even going up there. I was like, well, this, and especially coming out, that trail that we were kind of walking on, I was really surprised it would be so bold as to come out of the forest that far. So, yeah, it was a big cat, that's for sure.
And I got a picture of that track, and I took a video of it when we went up the next day. So we're going, and if I leave out any part, Woody, just jump in. Woody's 40 feet ahead of us, Greg's 15 feet ahead of me, and I'm behind him, and We're just sitting, waiting, listening, sitting in the brush, just listening. And we don't really hear anything. So I get out of the brush, and I walk over to Greg. I'm telling Greg, hey, let's go up and get Woody. So we start walking up to get Woody. And again, I turn around. He's got his gun pointed at me with his finger on the trigger. And so him and I start arguing. I mean, if there's any Sasquatches in the area, they have to be laughing at us. Him and I start bickering right there. And I'm like, Greg, you don't walk around with your finger on the trigger unless you're going to shoot something. And I don't really care if you... I used to have a 9mm. It didn't matter if the safety was on or not. It would fire. And I was like, I'm walking in front of you. And I was like, can you just apologize and stop doing that? He was like, sorry. There, are you happy?
Typical Greg move, yeah.
Yeah, typical Greg. And I'm like, can you apologize to me? Like, not like you're a woman on her period. Can you just, like, as a man, apologize to me? Because I've heard apologies before.
Yeah.
And I realized you said the word sorry, but that didn't sound like an apology to me. Yeah. And so him and I are arguing. Pretty soon Woody steps out of the brush, and he's looking back like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're walking ahead of me. I'm no longer walking in front of you. You got to walk in front of me. And so we walk up, and you lost your flashlight.
That's when I lost my flashlight. I was going to say, that's right when I lost my light. Yeah.
Yeah, you lost your flashlight. We walk up a little ways and decide, let's just turn around and go back. There's really nothing going on. It was a fun hike. Let's just get out of here. So we turn around, we start walking back, and I'm hearing something up on right above us in the tree line walking with us. But it didn't sound like two legs, I guess is what it's that. And my first thought was, oh my God, I hope that's not that cougar. And I turned back to you guys, and I'm like, do you guys hear that? And nobody heard anything.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm crazy. So I keep walking. And I hear it again.
And then I heard it. And the reason I think why I didn't hear it the first time, it was almost like it was taking steps as we took a step. And then we would stop, and then it would quit. But as soon as we started walking, once you really were tuned in to what was going on in your surroundings, then you could hear it.
Yeah, and I don't even know. It almost sounded too small, I guess, to be a Sasquatch. It didn't sound very big. And my first thought was, well, maybe it's a deer. Then I realized it was pacing us.
No, I still thought it was a cougar. I mean, I was thinking, oh my God, it's that cougar.
And then the night got kind of weird. Do you want to say what happened as we're coming down?
Well, as we started coming down, head back down to the car. In fact, I believe Wes even heard it first. He said, "Did you guys hear that?" And I was like, "Hear what?" He's like, "Listen." And he says, "It sounds like something is saying." I got a hold, and I have a hard time repeating it, but it was saying like "yo-hoo, yo-hoo" in a really in a low, not loud, like in a dominant way. In fact, I had even mentioned, or actually you had mentioned, is that an owl? But this happened repeatedly as we were walking back down to the car. It really got my senses high, and I was actually starting to get kind of scared because I wasn't sure what it was, but whatever it was following us. It wasn't like, hey, we just passed it and it's gone now. It's moving at the same rate of speed that we're moving somewhere on the North Hillside. I was getting pretty nervous. And actually you could see it in Greg's eyes too, because this is all kind of new to Greg. And he was like, like you said, he's kind of a one-word person. And you're like, Greg, do you hear it? And he's like, yeah. And that's all he would say. And it's like, you'd ask him what he thought it was. And he's like, I don't know. He just didn't have much to say about it, but.
Well, and it didn't really make me, I guess it weirded me out more than made me nervous because it sounded more like a little kid. It didn't sound threatening, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It didn't sound threatening. It sounded weird. And at one point I'm shining my light up ahead of you guys, and I'm like, so here's let me complain about Greg again for a moment. I'm shining my light up on the hillside, and I see eyes. I shine.
Yeah.
And I turn back to Woody and Greg, and I'm pointing to my eyes and then pointing up to the ridge line because I don't want to say anything.
Yeah.
And so Woody does the eye, points to his eyes and like does a gesture. Like, is it he is gesturing over here, and I'm pointing. No, it's here, and we haven't said 2 words.
Right.
And Greg's like, "What are you guys pointing at?"
He doesn't know sign language very well.
Greg's like, "What do you guys see?
What is it? Where's that?"
And I'm like, I don't even know what to say. I just kind of laughed about it because I was like, "Really, Greg? I mean, do you think I would have just turned? I probably would have just turned around and said, "Hey, Greg, there's something on the hillside. Do you think these hand gestures? Do you think I'm trying to be like fancy here or something?"
Yeah.
I point my light up, and I see eye shine, but it's low to the ground, so it throws me off because it's not like 6 feet up. It's not like even 3 feet up. It was really low to the ground.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I know where this is going, so that's why I'm laughing. I'm sorry. Same thing. It was like I did see the eye shine. It was like right on the ground, and at that point, I was like, I see a gray head. And I was like, yeah, there's something gray in there. I was like, it's an effing alien. We'll take him too. So anyways, it turned into this kind of comical thing. I wasn't quite sure what it was, and we were still moving forward. And then I looked back. I didn't see it again at that point. It was just like kind of a surreal moment. It was like, what do we got? Do we have Sasquatch and aliens and they're here together? But I really don't know for sure what it was. There was eye shine. I didn't get a really good look at anything else other than it looked like a head poking up out of the ground. To me, anyways, from from where I was standing. You were quite a ways further up from me, so I don't know. It was just it was another kind of a comical moment, but
yeah, it was weird. And I remember and we'd hear that vocalization again. It was like Yahoo, Yahoo, or it would say
Yahoo. It would say it really fast. It wasn't like Yahoo. It was like Yo, Yahoo, yo.
Yeah.
Oh, I got a cold, so I can't do it. And it was a real high pitch. And like you said before, and I'm going to agree with you on this, it almost sounded like childish, like a child playing games, kind of like. And I hate to use the word peekaboo type thing, but it was kind of like it sounded very young and kind of childish.
Yeah, it did. And so we decided to keep walking. I'm like, let's just keep walking. It's obviously not doing anything to us. It's not, I'm not threatened at one bit about this thing. It didn't sound like something to be threatened by. We're all loaded to the hill, 2 AR-15, several pistols, and we're loaded to the hill with guns. And, for people out there wondering, I think we were pretty much all open to shooting a Sasquatch that night if we saw anything. I mean, I think we were all pretty open to, willing to take the shot. But we walked down. I figure there's nothing else going on, and whatever's making this noise, I'm starting to lose interest because I don't know what it is. And so we decided to walk back down to the truck. And again, I'll post the video so you guys can see where we were at and kind of what it looks like. And it's this weird little game trail. I don't know if I'd call it a game trail. It's just a weird little pathway up to the mountain. And we get down to the truck, and we all get in the truck, and we're all sitting. I'm in the back seat. It's 4-wheel drive. I'm in the back seat. You and Greg are up front. Greg was cracking me up because, Greg's never seen a Sasquatch. He's just heard us talk about it. And you and I rolled our windows all the way down, and Greg refused to roll his window. I think he was freaking out. He would never say that, but I think he was freaking out a little bit.
Yeah, he was scared. He was a little scared. Well, I mean, who wouldn't be,
Yeah. And so we're sitting there in the car, and I'm like, hey, let's see if that thing follows us down. Let's all, and I was like, let's all just pretend to be asleep. Let's see if this works. Let's just be quiet and all pretend like we're sleeping. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. And so I tilt my head back, but to where I can still look out the window. You did the same thing, Woody. I don't think Greg played along. I don't think he wanted to play along with that, but
no, he was staying firm awake, seated forward, and he had his hand on his AR-15 at all times.
on the trigger.
Yeah, on the trigger, pointed at you.
Yeah.
No, but there was no relaxation for him. It was probably a very awful night for him.
But well, he deserves a little bit of that. But anyway, so we're sitting in the truck, and I look over to my right, and I'm seeing movement. Now, I don't know if it was Sasquatch or a deer at this point, because I couldn't tell. I would just see shadows moving around in the tree line. And there's a lot of deer up there. There's cougars on steroids. There's Sasquatch. But I can't really make out what I'm seeing. But I'm telling Greg, because I'm sitting right behind him in the back seat, and I'm like, Greg, look to your right. What do you see over there? And plus, too, my eyes are, for people out there, I don't know what's wrong with my eyes. My vision's starting to go. My eyes have been swollen, and it's not an infection. I don't know what's wrong with them, but that's a side note. So I can't really. I'm seeing shadows. I'm like, can you look over? Can you see what I'm seeing? And it's probably, I don't know, just guessing, maybe 100 yards out. And the moon's right over the top of us. The snow is packed. And you could, like I said, you could see a lot that night. And I take my flashlight and I shine it over there, and I can't make out what it is. So I just turn my flashlight off. And I think I made the comment, well, let's go back to pretending to be asleep. Maybe it'll come in closer. That's when that's when the craziness happened.
And that's exactly what happened. We just decided to kick back and just kind of, sit there for a while and relax, even though it was a nightmare for Greg, I think, most of the time. But I started to look over. So I'm actually in the driver's seat. Greg's in the passenger seat. You were sitting directly behind Greg. And everything would be to the north. And I'm looking through the window. Greg has his window up, and I'm trying to look across my brother Greg and his window, because I'm seeing something. And I asked him to. I'm like, hey, Greg, you want to roll the window down? He'd roll it down for a second, and then he'd go right back up. I'm like, well, and Wes and I both have our windows down, And I'm like, no, dude, let me look out that window. I think I see something. And so he eventually he rolls it down. He wasn't too happy about it. I look over there and I'm like, Greg, I was like, oh my God, look between those two trees right there. And this, I don't know, how far do you think that was, Wes, from the vehicle to those two trees?
50 feet.
I think it was probably a little more than that. But
60 feet, not very far.
Yeah, it wasn't too far.
Just outside the snow line.
It was just out the snow line into the tree line. So we were basically on a kind of a game trail road. Not really even, I wouldn't call it a game trail road. It was just like I don't know what they use it for, really. It was just this little out spur type road thing. And I'm looking in just inside probably about 20 feet of the tree line. I'm like, there's a Sasquatch. I go look. In fact, I made the comment. I go look. It's about 6 feet tall. And Greg's looking. He's looking. I go, do you see it? Do you see it? And he goes, his exact words, and this is no joke. He goes, yeah. And he rolled the window up.
Yeah, I was busted. It was one of those scary moments, but it was like one of those moments where I just started laughing.
What the hell, dude? What are you doing? He's like, I sure do. Let's get the hell out of here. Is what he was thinking. Yeah.
It's good to bring a little comedy to it, because I really do hate that place.
Yeah, I do too.
And it really does give me the creeps being up there. But it's good for the soul, I guess, to laugh. Greg rolls the window
He's like,
up.
Yeah.
Like that little...
Like that window couldn't roll up fast enough. In fact, I think she was helping it up with one hand and hitting the button with the other.
Yeah. So I look over, and I do see an outline. I can't give anyone any details, but it was like an outline. The arms were a little bit longer. I'll let you describe it, Woody, but it was like trying to get skinny with the tree. Like it would get kind of back up to the tree and kind of try and look over at us, and then...
I almost think it was kind of just... I didn't feel really threatened by this one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it wasn't that big.
It wasn't big at all. I mean, it might have been 6 feet, but it had all the proportions of a Sasquatch, the longer arms. And it was black. I mean, this thing was the blackest thing that I've ever seen. I mean, it was just like jet black as far as the color. And so I'm looking over at it, and Wes, you were kind of sitting, you're sitting in the back seat, and you really had to lean forward to kind of see it. But I'm sitting here and I'm watching this thing, and it's kind of it would come out, but it would very rarely make itself, what would you call, broadside's not the word, maybe broadside, but it wouldn't stand directly in front of you. It was always a sideways glance. And so I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, God, that is a Sasquatch. I mean, it's the head, the arm, everything's lining up. And I think even at one point, didn't you say like, hey, or you yelled out the window, hey, who are you? Or something like, I don't remember your exact.
Yeah, I knew I knew what, I mean, I hate to say I knew what it was, but just in case, I know Greg's nervous and we're all armed to the teeth. Just in case, I yelled out the window, hey, we got guns. You better make yourself known or you're going to get shot. And there was nothing. It was quiet. And it didn't run off either. It just stayed there.
No, it stayed there.
Yeah. And I was, well, I'll tell you how I felt about it afterwards, but keep going.
Okay, so I'm sitting in the driver's seat, and this is going on for quite some time. Like I'm watching this. I'm watching this individual. I'm calling it a Sasquatch because I know that's what it was. It would there was two trees, and it would stand sideways and try to become one with the tree, and be skinny. And then every now and then it would poke out and lean down kind of on one leg, and would look at me, even though I couldn't really make out so much of what the face was, and then it would jump right back in. And then a few minutes would go by, and then it would come out, and I'd actually see the head. I think it happened twice. I'd see the head move back and forth a couple times, and then it would pounce right back up against that tree. And so this went on and on and on and on and on. And so I'm in my head, and we talked about this later, what you and I did. I'm thinking in my head, I'm are we going to take a shot on this one? I'm really, my best luck would be to shoot out the passenger window. Yeah. with my brother sitting in the passenger seat.
Well, I laugh at this because so Woody's should I shoot it? Should I just shoot this thing? Let's grab it and take it with us. And, you and I have gotten so much crap over our encounter. And so, it's not only us, but part of the reason doing the show is there's so many people that get so much crap for coming out and saying they've seen these things. So I'm thinking, yeah, let's shoot it. Just shoot it right through the window. We'll go up, we'll snag it, because it's not far from the truck. I mean, it's really not that far from the truck. Now, we aren't hearing any vocalizations at this point. This thing's being quiet as a mouse, but it's moving it around enough to where we can see it. And it's definitely an outline, and it would be an easy shot to take. So I'm telling Woody, in the heat of the moment, shoot it. I've already yelled at it. I'm well aware it's not a person. Shoot it. And so Greg's like, what about my ears? And I'm like, what? He's like, what about my ears?
He's like, we're all going to be deaf afterwards. Is it really worth it?
Yeah, I was like, and I laughed because Greg really is. He's our younger.
I hate to bust his chops, but that's just his personality.
Yeah, he's our younger brother, but he really is like going out with an 85-year-old woman. And so I'm like, well, okay, I guess plug your ears. Just plug them, I guess, and everything will be okay. The next thing I know, Woody's outside of the truck. I mean, in a split second, you're gone.
Well, yeah, so I made the comment. So I'm sitting here, and and man, the longer you sit there, the adrenaline starts kicking in, and it's like, well, isn't this, there's a lot of thoughts going through my head. Do I want to take the shot across from the front seat to the driver's seat to the passenger seat with a rifle right in front of my brother's face, or what am I going to do? I mean, so many things are happening at once, so many thoughts. And I'm like, I made the comment right before I get out of the car. I go, well, isn't this what we're here for? So I jumped out of the car and I don't recommend anybody doing this. But I jump out of the car and I run up on this thing as fast as I could. The only way I could explain it is Mel Gibson and Braveheart. I'm like, ah!
I was in shock. My jaw dropped. I'm like,
I challenge you, and I run up. It's not a smart idea, number one, to do that because Sasquatches are dangerous. But number two, when you're in a snow-packed environment, you don't know what's underneath you. So I run up. I hit log number one. I almost go tumbling over I hit log number 2. I jump over that one. And I'm just, and I'm like, okay. And I'm freaking out because I just almost fell flat on my face. And I had my rifle up in the air, pointed up in the air. And I come down and I lower it. And I just start to make like contact with it. And I take the shot. Boom. Oh God. I just dropped him. Oh my God. I was freaking out. And I really, at that point, everyone, I really thought I shot a Sasquatch. I really did. And I mean, I'm not, three things I pride myself on is one is not lying and not cheating and not stealing. And I really thought this was it. We've got one.
And I was in shock. I want to apologize to the guest I had on Friday. I gave him crap about chasing one down. And here I'm doing the same thing that same night. But I was in shock because I know how you are hunting. I know how you are with guns. I know how you are with gun safety. And that was so out of character for you to take the my eyes got as round as saucers and my jaw dropped. And I was listening for a scream. I was listening for it falling. I was listening for it running off. You had now stepped out of our view because you had actually stepped over this into the tree line. And so I look over at Greg, and I'm like, Greg, go back him up. Because I just have a small pistol on me at this point. I'm like, Greg, go back him up. And Greg goes, nope. And I go, okay, well, give me your AR-15. I'll go back him up. Hand it to me. I'm going to take off. And he's like, come on, guy. This is $600 gun. And I'm like, Greg, this ain't, either you go out there and you back him up, or give me the gun and let me go back him up. So we're arguing at this point. And Greg's like, fine. He gets out of the truck. I mean, he took his sweet time getting up there. He really did not want to get out of the truck. I'm grabbing my pistol, and I'm like, well, I guess I'll just go up there. And, I had a 380, which really isn't going to do much of anything, except for put a bullet in me if I need to.
Yeah, save one for yourself, I guess.
Save one for myself type of thing. So I'm like, well, I'm just going to go, and I guess this one of the guys gets hit, I'll pick up their gun. And so we
hey, you want to know something? So when I took that shot and I turned, and so I sat there for, it seemed like eternity, but really all in all, it was probably about, maybe 2 seconds. I don't know what made me more nervous when I turned around and looked back at you guys. And I saw Greg holding an AR-15 pointed my direction. I don't know if I was more nervous about the Sasquatch on the other side or the AR-15 pointed at me. So,
yeah. So I'm telling everyone, let's get back to the truck. Because at that point, I didn't know if he hit it. Because the AR-15, there's a hot round in that thing, and it will go through one of these things. And I was like, well, either it was a kill shot and instantly dropped, or you missed. Other than that, I can't tell you what happened. It was weird. So we go back to the truck, and I'm like, I'm sitting in the truck, and I've talked to enough witnesses now at this point. I realize it's really a bad idea for us to be in there now. Like, the longer we sit there, the worse things are going to get. Whatever that thing was, we're in a really bad situation now. And so we're sitting in the truck, and I'm like, well, let's just listen for a second. We hear footfalls around the truck. When I say footfalls, like, and for people out there that have heard it before, they're real heavy, like step, 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 stop.
Well, they were kind of up on that north. It wasn't really around the truck. Yeah. You got to you have to explain it. It was on the north side, the same side in the tree line, to where you originally saw the shadows, where you saw the.
You're right. It wasn't. I misspoke. Not around the truck, but I mean, I could hear them when we were in the truck. You'd hear step, 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 stop, and a real heavy footsteps. At that point, we just decided to leave. It was weird, man. Driving home, that's all I could think about. And all that next morning, that's all I could think about. And you know what's weird is I almost feel... I know a lot of listeners aren't going to love hearing me say this. I almost felt a little bit of regret that a shot was taken. Because hearing the weird little vocals coming down, and they weren't real threatening, and then that thing staying in the trees, it really wasn't that big. It made me think, God, I'd feel so much better about shooting an aggressive. I guess I get now why some of the guys say they'll only take a shot if they're being threatened, because that's all I thought about the next day. And I was like, well, we got to go back up there. We got to go back up and see if there's blood. We got to see if there's. I guess I felt a little regret. Maybe I'm getting soft to my.
Oh, I did. I did. I mean, it didn't really click. It didn't really click in until after the. I thought about a couple things on the drive home, and actually, I thought about a few things laying in bed. That early morning. I felt really bad about, number one, if it was something that was so young and was in a non-throat, just identical way you just said. I felt really bad about that. It meant no harm, obviously, and I felt like it was more or less playing, trying to play with us. And I did feel a lot of remorse about that. And number two, the way that I approached the situation, jumped out of the car and did something that was so stupid. I will never do that again. We joke around and we try to have a lot of fun, but on a serious note, that wasn't the brightest thing to do. Number one, I could have been hurt. Somebody else could have been hurt. You don't run up on something like Braveheart and start throwing AR-15 bullets out in the air. It's not a real bright thing to do. But I have to agree with you, Wes, on that one. It was a hard one to swallow. I was so unsure about everything, and I agree with you. I wanted to go back with you that, we went right back out there later that morning.
Yeah, and I got video of that for everyone. They can see the area. And the weird part about it is I can't tell you where that thing went. I can't tell you where it ran off to. It was just gone. And that's the other thing that kind of bothers me a little bit, too, is I realize how fast these things are, but I didn't even hear it run off. I mean, I heard nothing, and it was just gone. And I don't know what to make of that. Maybe it dove over something or climbed up in a tree, or it was weird. It was just gone.
Yeah, it was. Well, we all know how fast they are. We've seen how fast they are. From our first encounter. Obviously, all I can say is I missed. I missed in the heat of the moment and the adrenaline pumping, climbing over 2 logs, and snow that is, almost up to my, above my knees, not to my waist, but in that general area. I was, honestly, I was almost kind of relieved when I went back there and we didn't find it. I was kind of like not sure how I was going to accept it going back, especially if it was something that was so young,
Well, I still think that these things are monsters, and
I think they grow into monsters.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, this was no King Kong on steroids. It was like a 6-foot figure, and if I was to do it all over again, I'm not sure what I would do, although I know that I probably wouldn't be Mel Gibson and Braveheart and do what I did.
I know the other area that, and what are we going to call it? What did I say we're going to call it? Area number 2, or give us some secret name like a bunch of douchebags? But it's just because we don't want people going into it. There's another area that we have, and there's a long history of people disappearing in that area. We've been there before, prior to any sighting or even being in the subject. But there is a lot of activity, and I'm hoping we can hopefully shooting one and bringing it out, as heartless, as cold as that is, I think it needs to be done. I think if we would have ended up just shooting that one and it would have been a young one, I think deep down I would have felt bad about it, but I still would have brought it out to the open. I would have brought it out to the public. And I think at the end of the day...
I agree.
Well, and the reason why I say that, earlier in the week, this guy sent me these photos. He's a federal officer, and they have these photos. There's a lot of criminal activity in this one area, and a lot of people pass through in this one area. And so they set up these camera traps in this one area, and I guess that's all I'll say about that. But he sent me this photo, and it was interesting. When I spoke to him, he didn't say, hey, this is a Sasquatch, or hey, do you want to see a picture of a Sasquatch? He just said, hey, here's a picture that we caught on one of our camera traps. And it's been kind of the talk of the office. He had just moved into that office and wanted to share it with me. And everyone online is always wanting, why don't people share their pictures? Why don't people come forward? Why don't people, on and on and on and on. And so as him and I were talking, I said, well, can I share it? He said, yeah, if you don't say who I am or you don't give away too much, go ahead and share it. And so I was like, okay, cool, I appreciate it. So I shared it online. And I just got hammered online. People are saying, oh, it's someone in a suit, it's this or that. And I never once said, hey, this is a Sasquatch, everyone, here you go. I tried to give as much information on how I got the photos and just shared them online. Just said, hey, here, if you think it's fake, if you think it's real, I don't care. But here's how I got them, here you go. And I got blasted right off the bat for them. And I said, well, if it's true that there's people crossing through this area and there was a lot of criminal activity, then you'd probably have photos of that too as well. And he's like, oh yeah, give me a couple minutes here. I'll send that over to you. He goes, we do have people crossing through there. And like within a minute or two, I had photos of people who weren't supposed to be in that area crossing through right there. And so it was an interesting photo, but at the end of the day, and again, everyone online's like, oh, it's fake, and I even think I read online that I'm the one that took the picture and you're in the suit, Woody, if that tells you anything. I know you haven't even seen the pictures.
I haven't seen them. Somehow that doesn't surprise me, really.
Yeah. One of the things I read was that you were in the suit and I took the pictures. And it just people are crazy.
It's almost kind of comical. People are harsh though. People are ruthless at times, and I don't know. You just kind of you go with the punches sometimes. I guess is what I got to say.
Well, it made me take pause a little bit on sharing anything in the future that I get. It really made me stop and think. Because I, like anything else, man, I'm just trying my best here for everyone. And if I get something, that's people's biggest complaints over the last probably 2 or 3 years have been, oh, no one ever shares anything. No one ever puts out anything. And so when I get something, I'll give you the backstory. Here's how I got them. I'm not claiming anything on these photos. Just here's what was sent to me. I'm sharing it with you guys now. And it's just, I just got hammered on it. But, so I say that to say this. At the end of the day, as heartless as it sounds and as cold as it sounds, one of these things has to be shot. It can be a very dangerous situation to be in. You can put your life on the line trying to shoot one of these things. But if you have a clear shot and you think you can take a head off and bring it in, shoot it.
Yeah.
Because that's what it just has to happen. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you would have got that one that night, being kind of young, and would I have felt bad? Yes, I would have felt bad.
Yeah.
Would I have broke my heart a little bit? As much as maybe I'm getting soft in my old age. I don't know.
Well, it would have answered a lot of questions. Not only in the scientific community, but just in general. I agree with you. I believe it has to be done. And as unfortunate as it sounds, young or not, and you made the comment earlier, these things do grow into monsters. At least the ones out here in this area, they turn into monsters. I agree with you 100%.
I think we're going to wrap up going up to Yakult anymore. I think there's two.
Yeah, I'm ready to. I don't know if you want to mention about. I guess we could. I'll throw a quick thing out there. When I jumped out of the car, out of my truck, and I actually went on my rampage to run up to this to Sasquatch, and I actually took a shot. When we went back the very next day, I'm looking in a broad spectrum as the crow flies. You could almost throw. Like if I had a bow and arrow, or if I could throw a rock that far, which I really probably can't, but as a crow flies, this is almost in a straight line of where we had our encounter. And I thought that was really odd too, because are they coming down? Is that where they're coming down? And I'm not sure. I wasn't sure about all that, but it really it made me start thinking a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that the Sasquatch up there on Yakult, I think we're going to have to move pretty soon. There's too many people going up there. I still think they're up there, but I think there's too many people in that area. Plus, I'd like to go to their, I don't know, what do we call it, area number 2. I hate even saying that. It just sounds like...
I do too. I hate that term. It's just another spot that if we tell you where it's at, there's probably going to be 1 million people up there, and it's going to be ruined. Yeah. And it's actually a spot that before Wes and I ever had any dealings with Sasquatch.
So we'll tell that story real quick because it's Christmas, and my first guest is canceled. So we'll tell that story before I bring Gene on here in a moment. This happened prior to our encounter or anything to do with Bigfoot. We go up hunting, and we go into this one area, and it's an interesting place to hunt because it's probably one of the best places to hunt in Washington State, but you rarely see a hunter in there. It's kind of a ghost town most of the time. And we had gotten turned around, and so we pull into this. I got to use the bathroom. Greg's got to use the bathroom. I think you had to use the bathroom, Woody. And we pull into this one spot to stop and use the bathroom, get out. We're all just going to go. That was a weird night, man, because we all get out. And you know how guys are. It's like I don't, there's like a 10-foot radius around me. When I take a pee, I need you 10 feet away from me when I take a pee. I don't want you anywhere near me. Don't look in my direction. Don't, pretend like I'm a ghost, and I'll pretend like you're a ghost, and we'll do our thing.
I'll look the other direction, you look the other way, and everything will be okay. Yeah.
We're all going to the bathroom, and we're kind of like in a triangle facing direction. Like I'm one way, Greg's one way, Woody's another way. I just got the eerie feeling like we were being watched. I just got this really bad feeling, and it seemed like the air got real heavy and not paranormal-like, but I'm just saying you just got this weird feeling like we were being watched. We all have our pistol on us, and I pull my gun out, and I put it down to my side, and I look over at you guys, and none of us has said two words to any. We haven't said anything to anyone. I mean, I haven't said nothing to you. You haven't said nothing to me. And I look over, and you had already pulled your pistol out, and you had it down by your side. Greg had pulled his pistol out, and he had it down by his side. So we never say anything, and then we get back in the truck. Now, when you're with your brothers, if you say, hey, that I was kind of nervous, or hey, there's something about, prepare to be teased for about the next 4 hours. And I think Greg was the first one that said, I didn't like that area. I felt like we were being watched, which is, for Greg, that's a thesis. Yeah.
That's a big, that's a big thing for him to say.
That's basically like him writing a book. And Greg was the first to say it. He said, hey, I didn't like that area. I felt like we were being watched. And I remember I was looking over, and I was like, I think he was waiting for it. And I go, Greg, I felt the same way. What did you think about that night?
I hate that area and haven't been back there since. And so the other part of the story is at that time I had a 4-door Dodge pickup. We had it loaded with camping gear. We were getting ready to set up shop for the night. We were going to hunt first thing in the morning. And we got as far as dropping the tailgate, using the bathroom, closing the tailgate back up, jumping in the truck, and we all agreed there was something wrong in this area. And I don't know what it was. It took us a long time to drive up that road. It took us 45 minutes up that gravel 4-wheel drive, banging the truck around road. And then, Greg's like, I don't like it. Wes said the same thing. I agreed. We started the truck, and we drove an hour and a half to the east to a completely different area in the middle of the night, just based on how we felt about that spot. And we haven't been back there yet.
Yeah, we went to the crappiest place ever to hunt.
Where every hunter drives by, it was a sucky area. Yeah. But that place, what was really weird about that one place was that we left was, it was almost like lifeless. There was no crickets. There was no birds. There was no sound. It was almost like you were in outer space. There was no noise. It was so silent that it was eerie silent.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no wind. Normally, and sometimes you take that for granted. You can hear the wind, or you can hear someone else breathing, or someone drop something. You get used to the sounds of life.
Or yelling at Greg about pointing his gun at me.
Yeah, or you two arguing about who's going to get shot first. And that's why we packed. It was the weirdest thing ever, man. We packed up, and this is no joke. We did. Well, we didn't even unpack, so it wasn't like we had to really pack. But we threw our guns back on our hips, jumped in my pickup, and away we went, and drove an hour and a half in the middle of the night to find another spot to get the heck out of there.
It was creepy, and I want to go back to that area because there has been a lot of people have gone missing in that area. And I really, I think it's time to invest in some real firepower and go, bring the fight to these things. And so if we come up missing one day, you guys will know what we were out there.
Yeah, they were in area number two.
Yeah.
No, some night vision I can really see. I made fun of, I used to kind of make fun of people before, but night vision is kind of an important thing. If we would have had some night vision the other night, it would have made some differences probably on some decisions that we made, or at least for your camera, or as far as picking these things up. I'm kind of realizing more and more that it's almost getting to be kind of a key factor,
Yeah. Well, if we don't get one, I hope somebody else out there gets one. And I hope, I hate to say it, but I hope someone shoots one in 2016. We'll move on to aliens, or we'll turn to Alien Chronicles, or I'm ready for this. I'm ready for this mystery to be over with, man. I just really want one of these things shot and brought in, and I want it over with and done. I hope we're not even the ones to do it, to be honest with you. I think we've had enough public attention at this point, but
I'd rather see someone else do it. But I think it needs to be done. But
it's been a hell of a year. It's been a hell of a ride. I hope everyone out there has had a great year. I hope you guys haven't had a rough year. I hope you guys have had a great year. I hope 2016 is a good year for you, Woody.
Yes, you as well, man. And I hope everything does get better. And I want to appreciate everybody for listening. I wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Probably won't hear from me for a while. Probably be a while until I'm back on. But Wes, thanks again for having me, and it's been a pleasure, man.
Yeah, it's definitely been a pleasure having you on, and I'll be posting the video. I'll put you the video. I'll post it to SasquatchChronicles.com so you guys can check out the area. And other than that, thanks for coming on, Wood.
Thank you. We'll talk to you later, brother.
Well, next up on the show, I want to go ahead and welcome Gene. Gene, thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, it's great. I love you're here in my home state, and I'm just happy to have you on tonight. If you would, Gene, kind of start from the beginning. When did the encounter take place? When did the first encounter take place?
It happened Memorial Day weekend, 2004. My husband, he was active duty at the time in the military, and we were going with a few friends camping, and we decided to... Am I allowed to say where we went?
Yeah, Gene, it's completely up to you. If you want to say where it's at, you're more than welcome to.
Okay. Well, anyway, we decided that we were going to camp close to home. So we went to one of the lakes on Fort Lewis and decided to do our camping there. Well, anyways, we got out there on a Friday evening, probably, just early evening time. And the first thing that we had noticed was that there was this cement picnic table that was out there. And the thing looked like maybe a mortar or something had hit it. It was like broken, like somebody had karate chopped it or something. And so anyways, that was the first thing we thought was odd, but it was the last place, so we took it. Then, as we were starting to set up camp, we started to hear some strange noises, stuff that we hadn't heard before. And it made us curious enough that we went over to another camper that we saw, and we asked him about it, and he said, well, he thought that maybe somebody was training their dogs there at the lake. And we were like, well, okay, there's some sort of a reason, So
let me ask you, what kind of noises were you hearing?
It was kind of like a strange grunting noise. Kind of like that. That's the best way I can describe it.
Okay. And I didn't mean to cut you off. So what happens next?
Okay. So anyways, we're camping, and everything is going fine. We also had brought 3 dogs along with us. Our dog we had tethered to a tree next to the broken picnic table. And that's kind of an important thing to add, a little bit later on. Anyways, we were, just camping, having fun and everything. Nobody was thinking anything strange. And then after dark, people started, going to their tents and things like that. So then there was only 4 of us sitting around the campfire. We had heard where we were camping at, at that time there was a graveled road, and then across the graveled road there was a whole field of this tall Scotch broom. We had heard it kind of shuffling around in the distance. At first we kind of, stopped and, were listening because it just sounded like it was swaying, just going, just swaying. And then we didn't pay attention. Then pretty quick, it got to be really close to us. And that, I remember, kind of made us pause in our conversation. We kind of looked over in the direction, and then we went back to talking. Well, then we heard the swaying of the bushes, and then something that sounded like, did a heavy pounce in the gravel of the road. I had my back to what was going on, but the person who was sitting across from me at the fire all of a sudden stood up and said, "Jean, what is that?" And I stood up and turned around just in time to see something really big, running fast, dip into the tree line. We kind of stood there in shock. I don't even think I answered. And then all of a sudden, my dog that was tied to that broken picnic table just started going nuts. And that dog, I probably should add, he was an alpha male. He really wasn't scared of anything, but whatever it was that was there, the dog was terrified of. And he started choking himself, trying to get to us. Well, my husband and a couple of people came out of their tents, and they went toward the dog. And my husband said, "Shine the flashlight over there." I just said no. And everybody was kind of getting mad at me. And they said, "Why?" And I said, "Because I don't want to see that again." Well, they ended up getting the dog, brought him over, toward us. And then they came over and they were like talking to us about what happened. And we started, telling them what we saw. I was the one that technically got the shortest view of it. My husband started saying, "Oh, that's probably a ranger running around in the woods at night." And we just were kind of like, huh? But we just kind of accepted the explanation. One of the other people that was camping with us had told us that around the time that we started, having this situation happen, they said that their dog started trying to burrow its way underneath their tent. And at that point, we discovered that one of the other dogs that we had with us was nowhere to be seen. So we started looking around her, and we found her, and she was being quiet as heck. And she had crawled underneath a vehicle and was hiding under there. And that's what happened on night 1.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask you, obviously Sasquatch wasn't on everyone's mind.
No.
And your wife, your husband says, well, it's probably a park ranger, which in hindsight really makes no sense. Mm-mm. But I would imagine at the time that kind of made the most sense.
Yeah.
What happened next?
Well, we stayed up for a while because then nobody was sleepy. And then probably about an hour and a half later, everybody went to their tents. Well, I brought my dog inside the tent with me. And one thing was that during the night, my husband and I noticed periodically that he would burrow himself underneath our legs, underneath our sleeping bags, underneath us. Then we'd feel him get out, and then periodically he'd bury himself back underneath us. Well, then we got up the next day, and it was just a normal camping trip. Everybody was having fun, and we didn't really discuss what had happened the night before. Because I don't know, for me, it was kind of shocking what happened and kind of confusing in the mind, so I didn't really know what to say about it. Probably, middle of the afternoon, a couple of people on horseback came riding by our campsite, and all three of the dogs tried to charge these horses. And I remember one of us saying, and we all started commenting about how the dogs wanted to charge these horses, but whatever was running around in the woods the night before, they wanted nothing to do with, and they were hiding from. So we just kind of just commented that and then didn't say anything more about it. Well, then, as it started to get dusk, things started to get a little bit strange again. We had heard over in the Scotch Broom area, and this was a pretty big size, field of Scotch Broom. I'm not really good at, like saying, yards and things like that, but it was much bigger than like a field that you would go to see, a baseball game in, including the bleachers. It was a pretty good sized area. But we heard what sounded kind of like a woman in distress. And it just started up all of a sudden. And it was bad enough to where the men that were in the camping site that we were in, as well as some people from other camping sites, just all of a sudden took off into a dead run into that Scotch field. They looked around for a long time, and then when everybody got back, I said, "Who was it?" And they were like, "I don't know. We couldn't find her." So then we were kind of like, okay, that's kind of weird. Well, then we just kind of sat around the picnic table that evening, got to be dark and everything like that. And I think everybody kind of felt a little bit apprehensive, but nobody was saying anything. But then after a while, we all went to bed. And then pretty soon, one of the people because there was 3 different tents at our campsite. One of the people that was in the tent that was closest to the wood lines of where we were at, all of a sudden they started complaining and talking. And they were saying, "Hey," to get all of our attention. And we were like, "What?" And they said, "I can hear something walking around in back of our tent." And they said, "It sounds like they're just kind of walking back and forth." And so anyways, nobody questioned it. We all got up, took stakes out of that tent, and we brought it in much closer to where we were at. Well, then we all went back to bed. Nothing more happened that night. But the next morning, we didn't even eat or anything. We just packed up and left. And that's what happened that weekend.
Now, have you guys been back to the area?
I went back, me and my husband and my son went back last week, just kind of to get a look back at the area that we were at. And I also had a thought, I wanted to see maybe how tall, what I had seen was, because originally I had thought, and there again, from distances, I'm not really good at gauging sizes of things. I had thought originally I just would, if somebody asked me when I was talking to them about it, and they said, "How tall was it?" And I just throw off the top of my head, about 6.5 feet tall. It was a pretty tall man. Well, my husband, he's 5'8", and my son and I were able to figure out about where the campfire was, where we had camped 10 years, 12 years before, and about where, everyone was, seated and everything. So I was standing approximately in the same, spot where I was at. And then we told my husband to go out into the area approximately of where we had seen it, because there was a tree pretty close by that I was kind of able to gauge that from. And one thing that I noticed, and also my son had noticed, was from that distance, my husband was pretty darn short. He looked pretty darn tiny. And I said, "Get a stick." And when I, start raising it up, and when I tell you to stop, just stop there. So my husband got a stick, and he started doing that. And, we were telling him, go higher, no, a little bit lower. And then we were both satisfied that he had the stick raised to pretty much the size of what we saw. And then we asked my husband, "Okay, how tall is that?" And he said, that's about 7.5, 8 feet tall. And we were like, whoa. And another thing that we noticed was that my husband, he's not a small guy. I mean, he's kind of stocky. He's got pretty good muscles. Whatever it was that we saw that night was much more built than he was, because he looked, again, kind of small in the distance. But what we saw wasn't fat or anything like that, but it was certainly built really strong.
Would you say like I hate to use this comparison, like a wrestler or like a bodybuilder?
Probably like a heavyweight wrestler.
Hey, let me ask you a couple questions. Were you able to get any details of the creature? I realize lighting conditions aren't the best, and it's at a little bit of a distance.
Yeah, well, okay. What I saw, like I said, I'm the one that saw it the least amount of time. So we're talking like maybe a second or two for me. And by the time I saw it, I mean, it was, dark that night, so I don't know if there was like, stars out or something. But we also had a pretty good-sized campfire going. And what I just saw like this really big black mass running fast through the woods. And that was another thing because, there was like, the terrain was kind of uneven. And, like our kids that we had with us were kind of tripping and things like that during the daylight when they were running around. But this thing, man, I mean, when it was running, especially like in back of where our tents were at, you could hear, like some, tree limbs snapping, but you didn't hear it trip or fall at all. It seemed to be able to negotiate itself really, really good in the darkness. But all I saw was black. I didn't see fur. But two of the other people that were with us said that they could see hair. But I just saw complete blackness.
At any point in the conversation, did anyone go, oh, that's a bear?
No. We didn't know what it was. And that's why, when we were like, when my husband was like, what was it? We just started describing it. But no, we didn't think it was a bear. For one thing, what I saw before it ran into the tree line, its stride was really, really far. It had long legs.
And it was up on two legs the whole time running?
Yeah, it was running like us. I mean, its legs would run and its arms swung, like somebody that was sprinting.
That's well, let me ask you, and so you guys go back, is that where you sent me some photos, and it looks like footprints. Actually, one of them looks pretty good. It's too bad that it's stuck in the grass that it's in.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think that would have been a great cast. It's almost impossible to cast that. But what did you think when you went back and saw the evidence?
When we went back and we saw it, we left there pretty, shortly after that because we were like, I asked my husband, I said, how long ago do you think that these were made, because, I mean, he was in the Army, the military for like 22 years. So, I mean, he knows a bit about that stuff. And he said, oh, this looks like this was made within the last 24 hours. They were really, really fresh. So I took a couple of pictures and then we left. We just left.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You and I talked earlier, and we talked about Fort Lewis, the base that's near where you're at. Yeah. And that place is notorious for Bigfoot encounters. I've personally talked to a few soldiers that have come out of that base that have told me about encounters they had when they had night training or just being on base, out on the being out on the reservation.
Yeah.
And they have all kinds of stories they could tell you about stuff they run into. Was this your first kind of introduction to Bigfoot, or what did you think about this whole crazy subject before you had your encounter?
Well, I thought, I didn't disbelieve in him. My parents during the 70s, they were big-time fans of that show In Search Of. And, yeah, and I mean, I actually watched that episode. I can remember watching it when I was a kid with that Patterson footage. And I remember being a kid and thinking, oh, that's pretty cool. But that was pretty much it. I never knew anybody or at least that admitted that they had an encounter in that. But, you know, I mean, I wasn't a disbeliever, but I wasn't necessarily my mind was open.
Knowing now what you know, do you ever go back out camping?
Okay, you know what? Our camping has kind of changed. Yeah, we still go out camping. But we never, you know, like before all that happened, we might have just gone out with our family, period. We don't do that anymore. We don't go out camping unless we've got a decent amount of people with us. I don't know, I guess it's kind of a thing of like you feel safer in numbers. But it's changed it. And also, you know, it's kind of made us, you know, more aware of sounds and things that maybe we would have dismissed before. We're not so dismissive of it. I mean, we're just kind of looking around like, okay, what's around us? So, yeah, it's changed us. I don't go. We used to also, I can remember on Fort Lewis, we used to take our boys, you know, out, you know, hiking in the wilderness on that base. And we stopped doing that. So, yeah, it definitely changed it.
I don't blame you. What does your husband think about the subject?
Well, he was a little bit angry at us at first that night. And I don't know if that was kind of like a self-defense mechanism or, you know, something like that. Or else if, you know, because, I mean, we were all genuinely kind of bewildered about what had happened. I mean, there was fear in those of us that had seen it. And there was, you know, definitely some uncomfortableness with the other people. But we didn't talk about it again for about another month and a half after it happened. And it just so happened that two of the people that had gone with us on that camping trip were there too. Yeah, he thinks we saw Bigfoot now.
Well, be safe in the future. And if you guys ever go out there and you come across anything or you experience anything, give me a call, will you, Gene?
Oh, absolutely.
And I can't thank you enough for coming on the show.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
And that's it for tonight, everyone. Remember, if you've had an encounter, shoot me an email, wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. And for additional shows throughout the week, check out sasquatchchronicles.com. Want to wish everyone again a Merry Christmas. Thank God 2015 is almost over, and we're about to start 2016, so let's make it a great year. Thank you, Woody, for coming on. Thank you, Gene. And I will see you guys next time.